Uh, Sources that Boston Celtics president Danny Ainge seriously mulling his future with the team.
Interesting.
I just saw something else that was in regards to Brad Stevens. Potentially, I'm not kidding. I'm trying to find that. I'll have to pull that back up, but it had to do with him potentially moving into a front office job.
Interesting. Is he's not going to reconsider the Godfather offer that Scott Dolson made him? Is he? Should we get that? Should we get that that rumor mill swirling again like it was in the middle of March there?
Well, I mean, it's Sham Shigara from The Athletic. I wish Bob was on with us today, but it says Brad Stevens is moving from his head coaching role to leading the Celtics basketball operations, and
Wow.
Stevens will lead the search for the Celtics' new coach.
Wow. That is...
Boston head coach Brad Stevens is planning a transition from his current role into becoming the new head of basketball operations of the Celtics, sources tell The Athletic and Stadium.
That is...
Danny Ainge plans to resign from his role as Celtics president, sources said.
Wow. I mean, I'm not really surprised about Ainge just because they had this core of players that 2 or 3 years ago looked like it was going to be the future of the Eastern Conference over there in Boston, and it just really hasn't panned out the way they thought it was going to, especially after getting Gordon Hayward. But yeah, picking Stevens to move into the front office, that's an old school move. You used to see that fairly often where coaches would be the coach for a while and then move into the front office role. Don't really see that quite as much anymore because the job descriptions of coach and general manager are so different than they used to be. But yeah, that is a huge step for Brad Stevens. And if he knew that was a possibility, that might partially explain at least why he did not take that Godfather offer that Scott Dolson apparently made him during the coaching search at IU.
Well, you knew that he was thinking ahead back then. I don't know what he knew, what he didn't know. That's the thing. You never know what you don't know. That's what I try to tell people all the time. You just don't know what you don't know. So we don't know if he did. If Danny said, things aren't going well, everybody was thinking about Brad Stevens being fired. They're all talking about Brad Stevens is the one getting fired, is why he should move to Indiana. When it wasn't Stevens getting fired, it's Danny Ainge that's moving out.
Yeah.
So maybe he knew that was a potential to move up. Again, no recruiting, no coaching. How old is the guy?
Is he 40? He's in his mid-40s now, right? Early 40s still? Yeah.
So young guy. I mean, he's got all the money he needs.
Yeah.
He calls himself a masshole. So if that's true, then he's happy. He's truly happy.
He is. Yeah. And I mean, clearly they think the world of him up there in Boston. Like I'm sure those conversations were going on behind the scenes where clearly they think the world of him in Boston. If they're promoting him from coach to essentially running the entire show and then letting him be heavily involved in choosing the new coach, clearly they think he's the guy, right? They think he's the guy that is going to make them successful. And so he probably had that conversation at least, even if he was leaning toward never taking the IU job no matter what, he almost certainly had a conversation with higher ups in the Celtics organization saying, what is my future here? And I would not be surprised if something like this was discussed as a possibility. Maybe not this soon, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was discussed as a possibility, because clearly if they're giving him this, if this turns out to be the case, as Shams is very often correct on these things, that is a huge commitment to Brad Stevens for the Celtics.
Really? You think so?
I mean, I think turning over the whole operation to him and letting him lead the search for the new coach is basically saying, we are turning our franchise over to you. Here are the keys to the Ferrari. That is the biggest sign of faith you can give in a basketball mind, is to basically say you are our guy in the front office and you are the guy to choose the next coach.
Yeah, but that's not, to me, I'm not shocked because he's had that mind. He did it from a coaching standpoint, and you watch him as he was coaching, was doing it as someone who was in a back office because not nervous, never nervous. The guy never showed any. He's got that resting heart rate. That's why he's great. He's got a mind that just moves like this, that doesn't get bothered, that doesn't get exasperated, and he can stay calm, make great decisions. And that's why not shocked at all. He's just got one of those brains that I wish I had. But yeah, he's just one of those people that has just got what it takes. And he's not, because he's a great athlete, it's all mental.
Right.
And Boston sees that and they recognize that.
Yeah. And that's, you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, that there was a time in the middle of this season when the Celtics were really struggling where there were kind of just a little bit, there were whispers of, is it the end of his time in Boston? You know, does he, obviously he's a good coach, but is it time for a change for him where maybe he goes and gets another job in the NBA somewhere? But clearly the Celtics were thinking the exact opposite, where we need to hang on to this guy. And they clearly, from what I can tell, if this is the case, and by the way, Woj has also had this scoop as well, so it seems like it's happening. They clearly think that this was not on him. The way this Celtics team kind of has fallen off over the last year or two here is not on him in any way, shape, or form. They think it's more of either a Danny Ainge issue or just kind of bad luck. But yeah, there were rumors or questions about whether it was near the end of his time in Boston, and now the exact opposite is happening.